Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Being High with Dualistic Unity, sponsored by KAVVA Edibles, the THC gummies of choice for better days and better nights, legally and discreetly delivered directly to your door anywhere in the U.S., unless you live in Idaho. Sorry, Idaho. Get KAVVA gummies online at KAVVAbrands.com/DU10. That's KAVVABrands.com/DU10. And definitely don't forget to use the code DU10 for 10% off your order.
So for this episode, we are joined by Jon Kelley.
Jon is the co-founder of KAVVA Brands, which has a bunch of gummies that I have tried and thoroughly enjoy. He has a ton of knowledge of the cannabis industry and the cannabis growing process, and I couldn't be more excited to chat with him today.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Jon. We really appreciate you taking the time to be our first guest on this new series of Being High with Dualistic Unity. This is something that we've been circling for quite some time, because to us, being high is so much more than just about quote unquote drugs, in this case, cannabis or psychedelics or anything else. It really is a state of mind. A friend once said to me that being high is synonymous with being relaxed. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life, because that very much is the case. The more relaxed you are, the higher you get. And it depends on the substance in terms of what that might mean. But cannabis has always played a very big role in my life. I've taken years off of it quite well, thanks to the lessons that it taught me in regards to patience and fortitude. But I am currently a pretty heavy user in that I have glaucoma. So I'm constantly dealing with eye pressure. I have medical concerns, as it were. And so I'm very excited that you could be our guest and that you could share a little bit of what you do with our audience, who really, they are very interested in this, and they'd like to know more than is within our wheelhouse of knowledge, let's just say. So before we get started, if you don't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, KAVVA Edibles, and how you came to be providing them for us.
Absolutely. Just kind of the quick background is I'm a third generation farmer from Oklahoma. Row crops like wheat, soybeans, cattle. And in 2018, I was involved with the hemp farming bill coming to Oklahoma, and just started playing in that space. I was looking for other ways to, other crops to grow, or, other ways to make the farm work. And we started with hemp, then went into the Oklahoma cannabis program, and then went back actually to the hemp program. Just because of the opportunity with KAVVA, the opportunity to, to grow something from a farm and then sell it online is really my premise, or like what I'm really proud of, to be able to grow it, extract it, manufacture it in the kitchen into a gummy, and then deliver it to someone's door via the U.S. Postal Service. Puts a smile on my face every day. We founded KAVVA. It actually started out in the Oklahoma cannabis space, the medical program, with some concentrates and vape carts. And due to the competitive nature of the Oklahoma cannabis program, it was better to pivot. At least I saw it. I saw the larger opportunity to be able to sell a gummy nationwide versus just in the Oklahoma market. And I think, as you guys know, it's just a really exciting time to be able to deliver a 10 milligram THC gummy to someone in 50 states. So that we launched the edibles portion of KAVVA in March of this past year. Started the website, went live, and it's just been a wild ride ever since. It's been fun. But it's just, I really enjoy it, just being able to make a product, like I said, that I can, sell to someone to help their day. As KAVVA's all about better days and better nights. So that's been cool to sell those and get the positive reviews is awesome. And then be able to, at the end of the day, just reach more people than just the state of Oklahoma. And the cool thing, I don't know if I probably skipped over it, but KAVVA is actually the Greek word for cannabis. That's where I got the name. It's actually KAVVA, and we dropped the BIC off the end and just left the KAVVA. And that's how we came up with the name. So
I'm so glad that you told me that, because I was wondering, and that makes me very happy. I want to say, because I'm 44. I've been around a long time. I'm in Canada, so I went through the prohibition against cannabis for most of my life up until recently. Andrew is newer to cannabis as a culture and as a plant, as opposed to something that you would just find at a party and whatnot. So I just want to say that in the same way that you get a smile on your face in delivering it to people, I am so grateful that that exists for people, because I went through years and years of dealing with sketchy people to get sketchy plants, right? And just hoping for the best. And so it's nice that there is this trustworthy way to look at where it's sourced, that it's coming from somebody who cares about the plant, and then to have it brought right to you. Like there's very few things that make me as happy as that.
Yeah. And it's, I guess the opportunity for me was that, and I had a very limited view on the cannabis space, basically just Oklahoma's market. And I just saw there was an opportunity to make a better gummy. I was notorious for saying the last thing this market needs is another gummy, and that's probably true, but they need a good gummy. And, be able to make a all natural gummy. We use natural fruit flavoring. It's gourmet flavors. It's an infused gummy versus a sprayed on distillate, which we could talk about later as well. It's just, it was just an opportunity to make a better gummy and make it taste good. And then on top of that, like, you got to have a good experience, and, the R&D of the dosage and, putting samples out. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's been an interesting ride, an experience. So I'm excited. There's a lot of positive, good things on the horizon, and being able, just to get these out. I mean, we're all about just getting gummies in hands. And I mean, Andrew's sampled them. I think the flavor's spot on. To give someone a nighttime blueberry muffin gummy. I mean, I take one a night, I'm not gonna lie, and sleep great every night. And being able to give someone sleep. When we got an email the other day from a lady, I threw a bag of sleep in on her order, and she said this was the first time she'd been able to sleep in years. And that to me was like, that's why we do this. So it's just kind of, at the end of the day, you have the opportunity to make someone's life better. Just take advantage of it and do that. So that's what KAVVA is about.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I can absolutely attest. I got to be honest, I took one of your gummies about 2 hours ago. So I am. Oh yeah.
Oh my.
Come on. What's being high with Dualistic Unity if we're not high as fuck as we're chatting? So
that's one thing I love about the video you did, because you talk about, at least on the third gummy run, I mean, you're going through every emotion that any consumer has ever experienced. And there was some parts that very humorous, and there's parts that it's like, okay, well, I can't remember what you said. Just don't worry about the concern, or the concern is the concern. Eliminate the concern, and it's not a problem. And that's exactly what happens. People don't realize that. I think cannabis is just like anything else. Whether too much of a good thing is too much. I mean, people can take too many milligrams of THC and get paranoid. I mean, we've seen it, and you've probably talked to people that, well, that strain made me paranoid and I don't want to smoke that anymore. And it's like, that's probably wasn't the strain. It was probably the THC potency in that strain that got you where you were. And I think you guys know, there's a massive amount of re-education that needs to happen, because we've learned so much about this plant since, I'm going to say 2010, maybe 2008, when more states were coming on and extracting and making products. And we're still learning every day. That's the coolest thing. We're discovering new cannabinoids every day. The way certain cannabinoids work with the cannabinoid receptors in our own body. We're able to isolate cannabinoids now, which is really cool. It's just, there's, like I keep saying it, there's just a lot of good things on the horizon.
You had said something regarding a better type of gummy. And you had kind of glossed over gourmet flavors and a number of things. But you've actually gone through the process because again, you're a farmer, you understand cultivation, you understand the entire process of cultivating the plant itself. How much of an education or a learning curve was it to go into the other end of this and to go into actually getting the oils and then making into the edibles and then marketing those edibles? Because you're fairly new to this. You said it's in March, correct, that you introduced this?
Yeah, we did the gummies in this past March. Before that, we were in the extraction side of, like a live resin cart. And that was just sold in the Oklahoma cannabis market. So to go back to your first question, like on the farming practices, man, take everything that I thought I knew about farming. I guess probably the biggest culture shock of it all was, I'm used to planting or farming, 30 feet, 35 feet at a time, pulling a planter or, cutting wheat, soybeans, corn, etc. And now we're down to doing one row at a time and we're manually chopping plants. And it's just all manual labor. The first year we did on the hemp game or the hemp side of it, we did 40,000 plants. And that was a lot. And we planted the wrong time of the year. Because we had some flooding in the farm. And so we just got a late start. So we didn't get enough vegetation growth and before it switched over to flower. So that year, I think we got 300 pounds. So it was kind of a bust on that year. But then the following year, we ended up, it's when I went into the Oklahoma medical marijuana program and we changed up the way we planted. Instead of just drilling it into the ground, we actually did raised beds. So we had this, and I'd never been around this type of farming before. It's basically like fruits or vegetables. So we tilled up the dirt and basically worked it up like a powder. And then we had what's called a hipper bedder. You go in and you build these high mound tunnels, and then it lays plastic over it. And it also has a drip line. You do it all in 2 passes. And then you go over it with a transplanter, and you're sitting on the back of this transplanter. It's me and a buddy sitting side by side, and you got this long tray of clones, and you just sit there and it's got a water wheel between these 2 seats. So when this water wheel goes over and it punches a hole in that plastic, a 4x4 hole. And you take that clone and you shove it in that hole because it's been saturated with water, and you move that irrigation line over next to it and you keep going. And the last year we did 6,000 plants. And that was a good harvest. I mean, we were really, we had it dialed in at that point. We had some drying containers. We tried the cured route and the shipping containers, and then we did the fresh frozen and put it in a deep freeze to flash freeze it and then extract the oil out of it there. But yeah, I mean, the cool thing on the farming side is farming cannabis actually made me a better row crop farmer, as I was paying more attention to things on the row crop side in the ground, just because I got used to walking 6-7 miles a day in the grow, just tending to the plants. The other question you had was like the marketing or getting the product to market. Yeah, I needed a lot of help on that one, because if you got somebody that you can grow it all day long. Let's be honest, there's a ton of growers out there, and I'm all for anyone wanting to enter the space or try something new or try something they're passionate about. But it is a lot of work, and to try to get to a really good finished product to take to market with flower or a live product such as a cannabis harvest, there's not a lot of people that can get it all the way there, to a degree of what the market demands. Like a lot of your outdoor stuff really needs to go to extraction. At least I think that, because I look at all the indoor guys that are growing, and they've got a way larger overhead than I'll ever have because of their electric bill and all their costs. They're not using the sun like we do. And so I was always cognizant of, when we planted a crop, it was sold before we even put it in the ground. And the marketing side of that, we're not allowed to advertise on Facebook. Well, we kind of can, but we can say it, but we can't say it. So that's kind of the joke. And then, Google still thinks, we're bad. So we get shut down and shadow banned there. So it's really just, getting content out like this, videos that like Andrew has done. I mean, those are what's really bringing awareness to cannabis, and just the fact that we can sell gummies online now, a 10 milligram gummy. And on the marketing side, on top of that, it's to try to get this to market, and to be able to get a gummy out there. We're trying everything we can just to get some attention, because I think the mainstream consumer has no idea that we can sell a 10 milligram gummy and deliver it to their door via the U.S. Postal Service. So like that's a massive, I'd love to get on top of a mountain and just yell it, but it's tough because we're still censored one way or the other.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I did a little cannabis run this morning and was just thinking about how incredible it is that it's just about the stigma. Like, it's really just the stigma. And you think about something, the stuff that comes up when people respond to the stigma. They're like, people are lazy. You can get addicted. It's like, if you compare it though, if you compare it to an existing thing, like on a call we had earlier this morning, I compared it to coffee, like same sort of thing, like the potential for addiction, caffeine. It's right there. It's kind of the same thing. And yet we focus on it just because it's such a deep rooted stigma, and we don't want to question it. We don't want to look at it.
If you look at, I mean, I'm glad you brought up coffee, because I tell people cannabis is a lot like coffee. We all have certain coffees that we love, and we all know that that's enough caffeine for me for the day, because I'm going to start bouncing and getting jittery. And that's why I love, like a 10 milligram gummy. It allows somebody, if you cut it, and if you follow instructions, cut it in half, it's a good starting dose. That might be all you need. And everyone has different doses that they can tolerate. If you look at the way a gummy works, it's metabolized by the liver. And so like where you took 3, if I took 3, I need to go lay down, and I'm going to be like a brick on a couch. I'm a 1 gummy guy, and it's like perfect. I don't know how you were able to run.
So just real quick, John, I used to be a no gummy guy. I used to have the worst time on. I had 2 of the worst experiences of my life. One of them was on a basic 10 milligram gummy, because it wasn't about
it had to be misdosed.
No, it's changed for me. Like the shift in myself has changed my reaction to things, reaction to cannabis in general. Like, I used to, the subtlest feeling of feeling a little bit high, I had a resistance to it. And so like I think
attack, or like what happened?
It would be showing me everything that I was suppressing, basically.
Cannabis will do that. I think that's when people get like the paranoia. I think that's what they talk about. I've only been, let's be honest, we've all had a bad edible experience. I was misdosed one time. A 10 milligram gummy actually ended up being a 110 milligram gummy. And that was my second gummy experience. And so, and I know what you're talking about. And that was another, I remember when I got the lab test back on that gummy, because I sent it in, the Oklahoma testing, I was mad and did not have a very good time. And came back 110 point something milligrams. And I was just like, there's so much opportunity to do better and be consistent. And that's what we're doing here. So you had 2 bad gummy experiences. Were they both the same?
To a degree. Okay. The things that came up were
similar.
Yeah. So I think
get into it.
I'm glad we're getting into this, because this is, I think, something that I've talked about. Ray kind of helped with I'm very new to just cannabis in general, and I just kind of wrote it off because I had such bad experiences in the past on, wrote it off as just like, oh, that's not for me. And
Just
it's just
cannabis
that
as a whole.
because it shows you yourself, and I wasn't for me at the time.
Okay.
Like cannabis just shows you what's there, and so because I was resistant to it, and it's not to say that things don't still come up, but there's parts to it that it's like it's really does show you where the discomforts lie. And so I think people have different, I know there's like a endocannabinoid response that varies for people for sure, but yeah, a lot of it is what's underneath that that at least I've found in my life.
Okay. Did you have the same experience? By the way, I'm happy that my gummies don't give you these bad experiences, but did flower give you the same experience as a gummy, or was it just
to varying degrees?
okay?
Yeah, there was definitely a resistance for me for smoking as well, but it was like one of the big things for me was the concern of like getting higher, when I would take something, and like the future focus, the concern about the future, which was very much reflective of my life at the time. And so my concern about being like continuing to change, which is all getting higher is continuing to change your state. It's like, I just want to be in this state and hold on to that. And if you're not holding on to that so much, and the certainty that comes with the idea that that's all you can handle, and you let go of that idea of what you can or can't handle, then as you change, which is just progressively, get higher, it's like you're willing to face that change.
Sure.
Yeah. And again, this is just my experience.
No, that makes sense. So I like to tell people it's almost like a mood intensifier. If you're in a good mood, you're going to be in a better mood. If you're in a really bad mood or a dark place, it could, I don't know. I mean, I've never been angry and got angrier after consuming cannabis. It's always like, well, I just need to let that go, or let me think on that a little more. And well, now I see the other side, or well, I can look at that from a different point of view. And or maybe I could have handled that a little differently. I think maybe that's some of the reflection of it too. I don't know. It's I like popping a gummy and going to the neighborhood pool and just floating around the water, and it's just a great time. And I'd rather do that than, drink all day. It's like, at least that's me. I have nothing against the alcohol industry. That's just me. And then, I often tell people, until you've had a couple gummies, or how they're going to metabolize or they're going to affect you, don't mix it with other things. Like, get a base of how this gummy is going to work. Because I was reading some of your TikTok comments that I found interesting. Was there's a lot of people on there that were like, man, I can take a 70 milligram homegrown gummy. They were making their own gummies at their house. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's probably only 30% THC in that gummy. These are, 10 milligrams of THC is 10 milligrams of THC versus they had, 10 milligrams of extracted oil. And then, the other question is, if they were making brownies, did they, deoxycarbonate it right to activate all the THC? So while they might have had 70 milligrams, you don't really know how many active milligrams they were consuming. And I don't know why people wear it as a badge of honor. It's like, well, I can take 100 or 200 or 1,000. I'm like, you might want to get your liver checked, or, like, see what's really going on. That's a lot of THC to consume in a day. So
I think it might go back to what Andrew was saying earlier about, so often we run from our thoughts. Like we don't realize that a lot of what we do day to day is running from what would happen if we just slowed down a little bit. Like what you were saying earlier, that often you'll just go swimming rather than get angry when you're high. You'll just be like, yeah, maybe I'll think about that for a second. That's that space that we don't often give ourselves. And on alcohol, so much easier not to give yourself that space, right? So when these younger kids, and because normally that's what it is, it's somebody who's just recently been introduced to weed, or they're still like 20-ish or below, and then they're saying like, I've smoked giant massive fatties, and they're doing all that, and the whole reason is just because to them there was some anxiety that went into doing that. There was something they faced there, and they're still not over the whole needing to prove themselves thing. And so that's what's coming with them. But on the bright side, I mean, at least they're facing their thoughts. At least they're allowing themselves that space.
Absolutely.
To be reasonable, right? And
yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's the reaction to that relaxation. We panic when we're relaxed, right? Because we're like, I'm not in control. And weed really helps us through that transition.
I've seen way more logical and reasonable people on cannabis than I have on alcohol. And I think we've all probably tried to reason with, both sides.
Oh yeah. It's almost ends of the spectrum there with response.
Oh, it's complete opposite. Yeah. I mean, I think THC is, and this is just my opinion, a better alternative to alcohol, but it depends on, what your goal is. I mean, we do get a lot of customers that, this is their first time trying it. Then we got some users that are seasoned, and it's just real interesting, how the dosage just affects people differently. Because everyone's liver is going to metabolize it a little differently. And when we were doing the testing, I was, sending these out to some friends and family, and we say, and this one we had a 25 milligram gummy. I was like, start with half, start with a quarter. There was people that took 3 of those, and it's just like, man, it's like, how do we fix this? And I go ask one of my nurse practitioner friends. I was like, hey, when you prescribe medication, do people follow the instructions? She was like, no, we're surprised when they do. I was like, okay, so we're just going to lower the dose. Okay, that's what we got to do. So, and that's why we came out with 10. That was the most popular and standard dose of an edible product across the nation. I feel like it's a good starting dose.
I would agree for sure. I mean, just from standard practice, it's kind of like microdosing and psychedelics, right? Like, which again, different day and age for me. Like when I first discovered that people were using milligrams, I was like, that's adorable, because that wasn't part of my life when I was growing up. It was just grams, right? Same with weed. Like it was hash brownies. It was
right.
Those kind of edibles. And so to have this ability to do this right now, and I have to ask, because obviously you've gone through your own journey and learning how to do all this. I love the idea that you had to slow down in terms of how you were cropping and cultivating it and whatnot, because that would have affected your life and the lessons that you were doing and whatnot. But as you've gotten into this industry and you've realized how much of a fucking uphill battle it is, and it's way better now than it's been forever. Does it excite you to be part of like the 15% of the world that's pushing for this? Because it's people forget that 85% of the world doesn't have access to cannabis that's legal at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm still very excited to be in the space. I at the end of the day, I love growing things. I joke with some people. I said, I want to sell enough gummies to just go back to farming full time. Sell enough cannabis to farm full time. And if anyone knows anything about farming, and I'm sure it's the same way in Canada, it's all commercialized. It's just tough some years to make ends meet. So this is exciting. I always, I wake up every day just like, yes, there's battles. You absolutely nailed it. It's Brian and I shake our heads sometimes, like, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, this is fun. And I still think this is groundbreaking. This is, I think if you look at cannabis, probably the biggest thing that happened was in '96 when California went rec, right? And it didn't even really make that big of a wave across the United States. Yeah, California had a program, then Colorado. And, the really cool thing with the 2018 Farm Bill was that it allowed us to legally put, 0.3% THC into a gummy and sell it nationwide as long as it's hemp derived. And one thing that I think is just I'm using is, the U.S. government made up the word hemp. Like they made the rule. They made the dividing line of 0.3%. So all we have to do is make an X weight gummy to get 10 milligrams of THC in it, which comes out to about 3.5 gram gummy. Because I was working with the kitchen, and when we were, doing the formulation, they were doing Delta 8, Delta 9 gummies, and I was like, you realize we can just pull out that Delta 8. We don't need that. That's a chemically converted cannabinoid. Leave the Delta 9 in there, get it from hemp, and sell them nationwide. And it was like an aha moment. Like nobody had done the math yet. And I was just like, yeah, less is more. Don't put all the ingredients in there if you don't have to. I mean, I was in an argument with it yesterday or the day before. I just like a clean, simple gummy, and the less you put in it, and it tastes better. You don't need all the artificial. I'm not gonna lie, we did start with dyes because I didn't know when we went to the kitchen to have these gummies made before we acquired the kitchen. I was like, hey, I just want a 10 milligram gummy that I can sell. And I'm not a confectionist, and then you start taking a deep dive in the kitchen, and you're like, well, how is this made, and how can we make it better? Like, where's the real opportunity? Can we do a pectin gummy versus a gelatin, or pectin gelatin blend? Real sugar, real flavors, and then infuse it. Let's not spray the gummy with distillate, because that's there's a ton of brands out there that are in this space, but sprayed on distillate is inconsistent as far as manufacturing process goes, because when we infuse it, we know what's in that gummy, we know what went into that kettle, versus if you're spraying it on a sheet of gummies, right, and it's coming out in a mist, well, then you got different droplet sizes, and if you've got it's going to be droplet size based on your conveyor speed. Well, if that conveyor speed changes any bit, then you've got more THC on there. And then on top of that, if you put a coating, such as a sugar coating, well, that sugar is going to attach to the THC that you just sprayed on. So when it falls off in the bag through shipping and handling, well, now your THC is laying down the bottom of the bag. You're never going to, if you don't know it's there, who's going to eat a bunch of sugar out of a bag, or whatever you put on top of them. So there was just, like I said, a better way to do it. That's what we're doing.
While we're on the topic of cannabis, if you've been looking to try some new cannabis gummies, then make sure you check out KAVVA Gummies, the THC gummies of choice for better days and better nights. And a big shout out to the federal government for delivering KAVVA Gummies directly to your door anywhere in the U.S. unless you live in Idaho. Sorry, Idaho. Get KAVVA Gummies online at KAVVAbrands.com/DU10. That's KAVVABRANDS.com/DU10. And definitely don't forget to use code DU10 for 10% off your order. That's amazing. So with the 2018, is it the hemp farming Oklahoma bill, or did I write that in the wrong?
So
what was it called again?
So in 2018, you had the USDA came out with the Hemp Farming Act, and they allowed states to adopt their own program to basically have a hemp farming program. And that opened the door, for Oklahoma. It went from a hemp farming to, full-blown medical cannabis. And, now they make you pick you can either be a hemp farmer and you got to work with the Oklahoma Department of Ag, or you can be in the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Program, and you got to deal with OMA, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. So I'd much rather deal with the Department of Ag.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so then with that bill, and then the recognition you had of with the Delta 9, Delta 8 stuff people were doing, and then KAVVA, what was the timeline of those things? Was the 2018 bill before or after your sort of realization, and then is that the realization that led to KAVVA then, and how soon after did that idea start coming up?
There's actually another idea in there that I don't think we've mentioned. So in 2018, when I started farming the hemp, and then we did our first extraction of CBD at that time, I came out with a beverage called Pure Active CBD, and got accepted into a product accelerator called SKU in Austin, Texas. It's where I met Brian and Megan. And like there was 700 applicants, 50 of us made it to live interviews, and then seven businesses were selected to go through the Project Accelerator. It was about 22 weeks in Austin. It was an awesome experience. Met a lot of cool people. And then we got that formulated, getting ready to launch. We were right there at our, I guess it'd be angel round of funding in March of 2020. So we know what happened in March of 2020. COVID hit, everything shuts down. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, now what are you going to do? So I ended up planting, it was a real small year that year. We did 2,000 marijuana plants back home in Bartlesville. And that's when KAVVA Extracts was born off of that crop. So we extracted all the medical marijuana THC out of that. We went into the vape carts and the sugar concentrates, live resin. And at the same time we did that, the Oklahoma market, the cannabis market, was in a free fall just because of price wars. I mean, they had guys out doing billboards like dollar pre-rolls. And instead of everyone just holding their price, they thought, well, we're just going to compete on price. And then the market just kind of went into a free fall. And we sat and played with that for a little bit. And then when I, noticed that we could sell a gummy nationwide. In Oklahoma, the medical marijuana program probably has 350,000 patients in it right now. If you look at the opportunity to sell nationwide is a lot more than 350,000 people. So I was like, this is the direction we need to go. It's all the same equipment that we farm with. And that's, we just kind of made the switch to go that route. It's the same plant. It's just the government definition. The 0.3%. I think Ray made a good comment. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, in flower form, if it's 0.3%, yes, that's going to be a low THC flower. But THC is THC. So when you isolate it like we do, 10 milligrams is 10 milligrams, whether it comes from a hemp plant or if it comes from a medical marijuana plant. It's all cannabis plant.
That's such a relevant point. People forget that. They really do. And it's just because of the propaganda, largely. At a recent retreat, I was happy to introduce Andrew to the movie Reefer Madness from the 1930s. Just straight up propaganda that at one point people actually took seriously. The idea that this was a threat to your mental health rather than a boon to your mental health. And so I find that hilarious. You actually mentioned that you would prefer to work with the Department of Ag. And I was wondering specifically why, and I kind of know why, and it's because I've been involved with the industry for the last 5 years. Everything you were talking about the prices and the competition and just the lack of foresight and everything that was happening in that time period is incredible, because that's exactly it. The fact that you managed to survive through all that and adapt through all of that is incredible. It really is. But why specifically would you prefer to work on the hemp side?
With the hemp side, we have an oil that we have a larger market for. We can help more people at the end of the day, broader market. And I'd worked with the Department of Ag in Oklahoma on hemp program in 2018. Like I said, I was part of the team that, between Mickey Dollins and John Echoes, the two representatives that brought the hemp bill to Oklahoma. Working with the Department of Ag, they were real easy to work with at that time. They're a lot easier to work with than OMA, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. There's a lot more red tape in the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. And I think since the Department of Ag gets a lot of its guidelines from the USDA, and I was already a row crop farmer and working with the USDA and having to do crop reporting and deal with crop insurance. Like, I kind of knew how that one worked. It wasn't a made up program from scratch, like the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Program, where rules can change whenever somebody wants them to, it's almost like. And I just kind of got, I don't want to say burned out, because I still have respect for the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Program. I think they're doing a great job managing what they have to manage. It's just, this is so much more what I would say standard operating procedure for me. on the hemp side. The reporting so much easier. There's far less red tape.
And associated cost, I would imagine.
That too. Yeah, actually, I think the license just went up. It's actually more than the Oklahoma medical marijuana license now, but they know they can get it. And it's the other side of it is, I mean, let's be honest, the Oklahoma cannabis space, and I think the cannabis space across the nation is stressed at the moment. And so OMA is dealing with a lot of stressed people day in and day out. And so even they're worn down. And it's just like, you go to the Department of Ag, like the hemp side of that their program or their organization, that's so minuscule compared to everything else they have going on. It's just like, no one's in a bad mood. They're just, everyone, oddly enough, it's weird to have a government agency that wants to help, you know, or see you succeed. And I'm not saying OMA doesn't want to see anyone succeed. They just have a lot more rules that they have to abide by.
And societal pressure, right?
Yeah,
Like
there was so much.
Those rules is to reassure everybody who's terrified of it.
Absolutely. You know, when we voted to have a medical marijuana program, you know, there was a ton of propaganda at that election for that, and there's still a negative connotation to the program in Oklahoma. Some of it is self-inflicted, and some of it is the plant itself. So, and it's just that, you know, re-education. Like, this isn't a pathway drug. This does help people. There's data out there that supports all of this. I mean, I joke, you guys, have you lived in Canada your whole life? Okay, so you probably didn't have the DARE program.
Oh, yes, we did.
Oh, you did? Wow. Okay. Well, so like in Oklahoma, I mean, I remember sitting there in 6th grade, you know, you have these police officers come and talk to you about the DARE program. And I'm looking at the Oklahoma flag and it's got a peace pipe on it. And we're sitting here, all this stuff, it's the same stuff. I put it together right then, but this is bad, but this is okay. And we have it on our flag and it's in the classroom. It's probably when I started asking a lot of questions then, but
yeah.
Just a lot of irony and just like a lot of misinformation. And I think just, you know, like talking about it like between you guys and just getting the word out there, like, and sharing experiences. There's a lot more positive experiences on cannabis out there than there is negative ones. It's really strange. So I would say my grandpa's generation, totally against it. My dad consumes or has consumed. I mean, I grew 2,000 plants in his front yard one year, so I don't think he's obviously not against it. And then, you know, my generation, I'm 40, so I can see the wave and the change coming, and people being more accepting of it.
Yeah, I found that I feel a little bit spoiled, honestly, because a lot of my friends have been smoking weed for years, but I'm kind of just recently getting into it, and so I see the industry as it is. And like the thing, it's like the shift, because I'm starting, you know, my involvement or you know, interest in it is starting after a lot of shift has already happened. And so I don't even necessarily appreciate all of it all the time, or recognize just how much has changed. Because for me, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, it's legal in a lot of places and
Right.
lacking concern, but it's just a shift, an overarching shift, right? And mentality, the shift away from, we're seeing so many people and around my age and younger, like not really drinking as much anymore, you know, well, smoking a little bit more weed. And so it's been cool to see. But, and I'll let you finish, but I'm also curious just about your journey with cannabis personally, and how, you know, when you first came across it, how the experience has been over the years. Would love to hear more about your journey with it.
Real quick on that, you know, the alcohol topic, if you look at who the biggest opponents or the opponents' donors are to cannabis, you know, legalization or any type of bill, it's 9 times out of 10, it's the liquor distributors and the alcohol industry is donating against it, because at the end of the day, it's all market share and attention. And I found that interesting when I was looking at, you know, when Oklahoma voted, like, well, who was who was paying to fight it? And alcohol was number one. My journey in cannabis,
probably pharmaceutical number two, right?
didn't even think. Yeah, I mean, they'd be right there with them too. I'm trying to think when my journey of cannabis started. It's probably it hasn't been very long. Let's say 2017, so like right before Oklahoma got its program started. Just had some friends that grew some flower and tried it, and I was like, wow, this is you all lied to me. This isn't bad. This is a good time. This is fun. And then edibles, oddly enough, my neighbor, amazing cook, he made some gummies one time and they were awesome. So then that's kind of what got me excited about edibles, because edibles you can eat them. They don't have a skunky smell. They're easy to conceal. Within 30 minutes that it's going to kick in. So, okay, it does take a little bit of planning because it doesn't enter your bloodstream as quick as a vape pen, or smoking flower. But yeah, I would say 2017, 2018, around that time, and have been consuming since then. I just find that it helps me not react, or I wouldn't say not react, just not care as much about a situation as I normally would have. I mean, it's very hard starting a business, as you know, and I've been doing this since 2018. And like Ray said, we just kind of keep hitting a wall, pivot, or spin, or just keep going through walls. And it's definitely helped build KAVVA, because it's there's been some ups and downs. You get told no a lot because you can't do what you want to do, like an advertising or marketing or cool brand idea or marketing idea. And it's just like, well, I'll just have some KAVVA and we'll think on this some more, and we'll come back to go back to the drawing board, we'll think on it, and we'll come back with another idea. And I think it's definitely helped my mental state, just building these brands and getting KAVVA out there.
I imagine it just has to be exciting to be in kind of a new industry where you're having to learn everything from the ground up. Like, you can use a lot of your old skills, but you're still making new contacts. You're learning a new mentality, really, because I mean, the conversations in this industry tend to be very different depending on who you're talking to. The business types are still business types, right? But when you're talking to like people who've been cultivating for years, they're different.
They are. Yep. There's a ton of people in the space, and it's anywhere from experienced growers, which I'm not a big fan of the term master grower. I've never liked it. What does that mean? We all have something to learn. We all have something to teach somebody. But you got someone from that all the way down to a novice. And the sad thing is, I think a lot of people think it's like growing a tomato, and it's not. I often joke with people, you can plant a plant, grow it from seed and care for it, and it wants to die every day. Like, it's just barely keep it alive. But if you just threw the seeds out there and just sprinkled some dirt and then let Mother Nature water it, you would have this huge plant, and you never had to care for it. And it would just, somehow that one's living, but the 2,000 over here that were babying and nurturing and wanting to grow, they just give up sometimes. So I do enjoy that side of it. There is something new every day. We have 6 people on our core team, and we have status calls every day, and it's just like there's something new every day. That I think we have there's this lady named Amy that works with us, and she's not from this space at all. Love her to death. I think she just wants to pull her hair out some days because she just can't do what she normally do in another product. I mean, we could be selling water bottles and it'd be fine, but being the fact that we have a little bit of THC in it, or we're hemp derived or cannabis derived, we can't do that. Like, we can't even do like mass, like the other one was like mass texting, because the FTC hasn't caught up with the hemp farming bill yet, and so they won't let us do text message blasts. So I mean that's like putting an arm behind our back. So we got to think of something else to get the message out there.
That's it. You're very much swimming upstream. But on the bright side, there's some significant changes that are happening. I do have a question. This is something that I've always wondered, because you're extracting from hemp. How much variation is there in terms of the strains? Like, we often think of things in terms of indica and sativa and hybrids and things like that. And of course, you can identify terpenes and whatnot. How much consideration is that in what you grow and what goes into your edibles?
It's a lot of consideration. Obviously, we want to get strains that produce a good terpene profile and a good oil profile. I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it. It's more for climate for us, because Oklahoma can get very dry, or it can be very humid. So you don't want a flower that's real dense and tight, because a lot of the oil is actually inside that flower. It's not what you see on the outside. It's actually what's in that flower or the bud. So if we have a real tight, dense flower, then we introduce an opportunity for mold, and we don't want that. And to the comment on your indica sativa hybrid, at this point, it's all the same anymore. It's all been bred up, bred down, crossbred, inbred, and indica sativa. All that really has to do with is the physical plant structure. One's tall, narrow, got a different leaf. The other one's short, bushy, has a real fat leaf. And I think probably at one time, maybe in the very beginning, before we started changing the genetics of the plant, those terpene profiles and THC profiles and cannabinoid profiles might have lent themselves to, okay, this one's going to make you feel a little sleepy, which probably has actually a little less THC in it, versus this one's real high in THC and this one's going to give you energy. The more, if you have a real potent THC gummy, you're going to be up running around. You're going to want to go on a 5-mile run with a lot of THC. But if you have lower amounts of THC, and let's say you had real high CBN or CBD, well, that's going to make you a little more sleepy and more relaxed. And so I think that's, if we get ahead of that one and just say, it comes down to your THC dosage on top of all these other cannabinoids. There's over 140 of them in that plant. And I think what's really interesting is if you consume a lot of flower, Ray, like you probably have a favorite strain. So if you took seeds from that and you went to your 2 favorite growers, you would have 2 totally different experiences.
Absolutely.
Because those growers have different growing practices. And so that's one thing that's been really cool is, now that we can isolate a cannabinoid, you can almost build an exact dose of what would be great for Ray or Andrew or myself. And I think that's where you'll see the market shift. I see it going, now that we have it, isolated THC. I mean, these are 10 milligram gummies. And as we know, that's enough for some people, but not enough for others. But maybe that there's an opportunity to, I would say, trying to figure out how to word this. There's an opportunity for an education right there to where you might want more CBD, CBN, and like real low THC. And you find out like that's your coffee for cannabis. Like that works really good for you. And that's why I like trying different flower or different gummies or, different brands or different formulations, because you just get a slightly different experience. I mean, as Andrew mentioned, we do have an endocannabinoid system. And if we take the same gummy every day for months, we're just going to stimulate that endocannabinoid system where it's like, yeah, this isn't working like it used to. But if you change it up just a little bit, we're right back to where we used to be, 30 days ago, and everything's awesome again.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just it, is just like the littlest shifts can have a totally different response to things in THC. And it's I've just been so intrigued by, everything happening in the industry, and beyond just the industry, just like cannabis itself and the impacts and the different use cases and whatnot, and probably get wrapped up here in a little bit, but one last question in regards to KAVVA. Do you guys see yourselves expanding beyond the gummies or the current versions of the gummies that you have right now into some other, be it food or other, things that can be utilized from stemming from hemp and the hemp that you're growing? Like if there's any other products you're considering, I would love to hear.
Absolutely. Now that we have the kitchen, we can do a Rice Krispie treat. We can do chocolate bars. There's a granola, almost like a granola protein bar that we have a formulation on. And there's like a granola cookie crunch, so to speak, like it just clusters. So we'll be launching those as we grow. We're in the R&D stage on all those right now, and they have formulations, but it's not where I want it to be. And they've got they make some chocolate bars that were 1,000 milligram chocolate bars, and it's like, yeah, that's you can't sell that one nationwide, obviously. But there's a Oreo cookies and cream, and then just full on Dutch chocolate, but it's way too hot right now. We're going to launch the chocolate in the winter, so we don't have to worry about things melting as much. And then we'll try to figure out, I don't know if that chocolate will be one that we could ship nationwide all the time. It's just so hot. But last thing you want to do is ship someone a chocolate bar and it's all melted. And like, what are you going to do with that? Now you don't know the dosage. So, but yeah, that's the products that we have on tap, and some more flavors. I like to do some seasonal flavors. We do have some seasonal flavors we'll come out with this fall. We have an apple pie, pumpkin spice latte for the November month, and then they have a peppermint one for Christmas on some gummies. So it's exciting. I want to launch it all right now, obviously, but the team's like, no, we got to do this in stages, and we got to get gummies going and start there and just keep adding on. So as soon as I'd love to send you guys some, when we do this R&D, I'd be more than happy to send you guys some just to get some feedback. Because when we do launch it, it will be right. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it's what we're here to do.
That would be fantastic. I know I'm coming to the States more often because we're hosting retreats in the States every 2 months now. So I look forward to coming down there and being within range of your delivering. I do have just 2 quick questions before we wrap up for the day. What is currently your favorite product that you produce, that you use, that is your go-to at the end of the day? And what's the one that you're most looking forward to coming out?
This one here, the blueberry muffin, the Sleep blueberry muffin's my absolute favorite. Hands down, I take one of these a night and sleep great. As far as a Joy, on the Joy lime, this one, I don't think it gets enough love because people think lime is, it's bitter, or maybe like a lime juice, but that's more like a key lime pie or key lime. It goes great with like lemonade or a margarita. I mean, they're just delicious. And then the product coming out, I'm really excited about the granola. I don't know what they're going to call them. It's almost like granola clusters, just because you just take a handful, what's in the bag, and it'll be so many milligrams. It'll have I guess so many milligrams per serving is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's I've sampled that one, and it's just really good. I mean, it's just good. That's probably what I'm looking forward to that one the most.
I'm pumped to give that one a shot. Yeah, I believe I took the tangerine flavored Joy today, so I think that might be actually the watermelon, that one. I think I got that in the Joy, and I think that, or I got that in Sleep. Yeah, that's my favorite flavor, I think.
The watermelon, that watermelon tastes, it's good. There's a hard candy that it tastes almost identical to. I don't want to mention their name, but it's pretty close. So that the blueberry, I mean, they're all good flavors. If I was to say the one that strawberry, I feel like needs just it gets great reviews, but to me, it's just like it could be better. But I don't want to let perfection stand in the way of good too. So it's one of the top movers. We sell more sleep than we do joy. It's amazing how many people, I guess, need sleep, but if you're able to sleep, then you're obviously going to have a better day, and then you'll find some joy. Just because I don't know if you guys have ever been sleep deprived, but it's not a good time.
Absolutely not. No, that's definitely a part of my my past. It's actually one of the reasons that I used to lean on cannabis before I understood the benefits that cannabis could have in terms of mental health. I was more or less just leaning on it for some degree of cessation of my stress, a way to actually just pass out at the end of the day. And so you can use it that way. There's more to it, obviously, and we're going to cover more of that as the series progresses. Anybody who's interested in the audience obviously can find more at KAVVAedibles.com. Jon, as we've been talking about, social media is kind of, it's a rigged game at the moment. Which channel would you suggest people reach out to you and follow you at?
I'd say Facebook, Instagram, or the website. Like I think you just mentioned it, KAVVA Edibles. There's also KAVVA Brands, because we know we're going to have more products coming out. So we're not trying to just stick to just a gummy or an edible. We do want to expand. So you can find us at KAVVAbrands.com or KAVVAedibles.com, and then give us a follow, Facebook, Instagram. Like TikTok's launching next week. It's like I said, it's all brand new and very exciting. And thank you again for having me on this. This has been exciting, Andrew. It's been a pleasure working with you. Love the runs. Keep it up. And Ray, it's been amazing meeting you. I hope we continue to do this. This has been a cool podcast and experience, and love to do it again. And I'd love to join you guys on some of these retreats that don't come to Oklahoma until the fall or maybe even like early winter. It's just too hot, but
absolutely. Yeah. No, Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm a big fan of KAVVA, and for those listening, that's KAVVA edibles.com.
Yep.
And Jon, it's been a pleasure, man. I'm excited to continue our relationship and keep in touch. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a good one.